All right, hi everyone. So I'm here presenting a presentation that Madison and I put together. She's out of town, but reflecting on a project that I actually worked on, that we worked on with 5 other GSLIS students. This is the 2015 Symposium on LIS education. So if we go to the next slide, this is a 2-day, it happened just last weekend, so we're a little bit still reeling, and a 2-day student-led hybrid symposium focusing on student perspectives in LIS education, which was held here, a lot of it in this room, and then also virtually. And so this was Madison's idea. You guys have spoken to her, you know she's a very passionate person. And then happened sort of with this planning committee, many of whom are in this room and you've had a chance to hear from today. So this is all of us working closely together. Inspired by the idea that there were a lot of issues in LIS education and conversations around those issues that were happening in many places in administration, various LIS programs, in professional organizations such as the Association for Library and Information Science Education, and other spaces where student voices may have been present, but were definitely not sort of the focus. So we set out to create a student-oriented space and a student-led symposium to not only increase the presence of student voices, but also hopefully to build a community of practitioners moving forward, and also to sort of encourage those in power, those in leadership roles to focus more on student voices when having these conversations. So next slide, please. What this looked like as a 2-day symposium was a set of keynotes. Emily Week of Hiring Librarians, Micah Vandegrift, Annie Foe, and Brianna Marshall, who are all associated with Hack Library School. Also, small group discussions around unconference prompts that we wrote, ranging on things from the role of critical theory in LIS education to sort of addressing the lack of racial diversity in our profession. So, big questions with the idea sort of getting conversations going, starting to think about solutions. And then we also included 13 referee presentations that came from a call for proposals that we sent out, and a lot of Twitter activity. So Janie put together a storyfy of all the tweets from the event. So if you're kind of curious about the kinds of conversations we were having, it's linked off the slides. So next slide. So now that I've talked a little bit about what and why we did, I want to tell you a little bit how we did it, and I'm doing this with an ulterior motive, sort of with the ultimate goal of inspiring some of you to do this yourselves. So, looking back at our meeting notes from our first meeting is hilarious. Do we need a website? We asked. Yes. So, this took, what we started out doing was got in a room, and our first few meetings were just figuring out the scope of the event. What do we want to say? Who do we want to say it with? Or talk about it with? And then we started getting the word out by sending out emails to student groups at LIS programs all over the country, our personal contacts, and we also generated a lot of attention on Twitter. A little bit later on, and if you do this yourself, we recommend you do this a little bit sooner, we started figuring out the logistics, funding. Where will we have the event? How will we do the hybrid symposium? Which I will mention that Kate Rojas, who's not here today, but I think she's at work actually, we would not have had, say thank you again. And we also got a lot of buy-in, even where we weren't expecting it, from administrators who were supportive, from our keynote speakers who came on their own dime, sort of. We put them up in a not-so-great hotel, but they came to speak with us, and they provided a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the project. We also were fortunate enough to get a graduate college grant, several generous individual donations, and donation of food from GSLIS. And we have learned that if you need something, just ask. And people are usually very willing to help and excited. And this is where I would pause for a joke about working with librarians and how that's kind of commonplace. But I will also say that this process is kind of like doing group work on steroids. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and very real tears, and a lot of work, and worthwhile work. So just when you get a group of excited people together to do this next year, keep that in mind, build in sort of a system for regular check-ins, and sort of make sure you're always on the same page. All right, last slide? Or before last slide? So, our next steps. We have conference proceedings. We're catching our breath right now. But we have conference proceedings and recordings of all the presentations coming soon. So we're really hoping that these are going to be sort of living documents that continue to generate conversation around these topics. We've also been accepted as an ALA conversation starter at Annual in San Francisco on June 29th at 4 p.m. So if you guys are going to be there, we welcome suggestions for how you would like this this portion of the conversation to look. So this will actually give us a chance to open up the conversation to a much broader community of students and practitioners and educators. And finally, plan your own event. Sort of keep in mind that it's a lot of work, but like one piece of advice is sort of ask for help, don't ask for permission. So there's a lot of helpful people around, but don't be afraid to sort of take ownership of this event, say what you have to say, and stand your ground. It can be very scary, but it can also be very incredibly empowering. And finally, if you need any advice, Madison and I, and I'm sure that the rest of the planning committee also, but I didn't want to sign them up without asking, would be very willing to sort of chat. So get in touch. And the last slide is just URL for the symposium to sort of see what we're up to and our contact information. So please.